Tonight, on the most dramatic season ever of the Clare and Dale show, Clare asks most of the contestants, except for Dale, to do things she might not be willing to do herself. I'll tell you all about it in this exciting recap and just exactly how uncomfortable it was. On this episode of The Clare and... what? It's Chris Harrison. Hey, C-Money. Yeah, I was just watching. Yep. No, I don't think that the show really loses anything by being in quarantine lockdown. Yes, I think it is good that you cut out the part where everybody played Yahtzee together. That was probably boring. Clare and Dale, it's a little uncomfortable, but I think you kind of smoothed everything over. Yeah, no, don't worry about it. Well, look, I got to get back to the recap. Are we still on for brunch Sunday with Waboom? Okay, great. Looking forward to it, C-Money. Yep, thanks, man. Oh, Chris. He's just so much... I'll never be as good as Chris Harrison. I'll never be as smooth in doing these recaps. They're just not going to be as smooth as his. But let's talk more about this exciting episode of the Clare and Dale show. The first group date is a love languages date where we go over the 5 love languages, and the Bachelorette set builders built a little like sort of puppet theater for Clare to sit in and listen to the confessions of the men about why they're here. It's slightly uncomfortable, but not as uncomfortable as when they put on blindfolds later. But when Dale has the opportunity to tell Clare what he sees in her in the puppet theater sequence, he lets her know that he's all in for her physically, emotionally, and he just trusts her. So isn't that cute? So then we move on to the blindfold scene, and we have some more kind of uncomfortableness with Clare and Dale touching each other. The cast remarks on how uncomfortable it is, and then we move into an uncomfortable cocktail party where Clare gives an awkward toast and asks if anybody would like to talk to her, and no one volunteers immediately. Then Bennett steps up, volunteers. Clare is still upset that nobody volunteered, so she storms in to the guys that are back in the outside setting waiting for her, and lets them know that she's very upset that no one volunteered to talk to her. But then luckily Dale whisks her away, and all hope is restored as they make out yet again. Next we have Jason's date, which is a exciting quarantine letter writing date. So Jason writes Claire a letter, Claire writes Jason a letter. They meet in front of a fire pit and burn some things that are spiritually meaningful to both of them. And then this date culminates in the reading of the letters. And the letters are written to their younger selves. So Claire reads a letter that she wrote to her younger self that basically says, you know, dear younger Claire, things are difficult sometimes, but everything will ultimately turn out okay. Then it's time for Jason to read his letter that he wrote to his younger self, and it's quite a bit more introspective and deep, and he clearly is struggling with how much he wants to reveal. Claire absolutely encourages him to reveal more and more. He doesn't quite go all the way, and he has some type of dark secret that he doesn't want to reveal, and he smartly does not do that. But the overall effect of this is that he comes away thinking that Claire is a great listener, and he does feel closer to Claire from this, which seems to be Claire's goal in this. Again, it was a bit uncomfortable because Claire was asking Jason to go further than it seemed like she was willing to go in revealing something. The next date is another group date, and so far we had the puppet theater date, which was the love languages, and then we had the letter writing date, which was Jason's date, and now the next date at La Quinta Resort is a dodgeball date. So we play a game of dodgeball, red team versus blue team. The winner gets a cocktail party. Winning team gets a cocktail party with Claire. Then Claire reveals that it's not just going to be dodgeball, it's going to be strip dodgeball. Do you remember the episode of The Bachelor where Juan Pablo had the game of strip dodgeball and the winning team of women that lost had to strip down naked and then walk home naked, and then their prize for this was that they didn't get to be in a cocktail party with Juan Pablo? Yes, I missed this episode also. So yes, this is exactly what happens. We have one team that kind of dominates. The other team has to strip down naked, walk home naked, and ultimately they don't get to have a cocktail party with Clare. So Clare has a cocktail party with the winners. The big exciting news is that Blake M crashes the party and pulls Clare away. And this greatly upsets the boys that won the dodgeball game, and they all gang up in kind of a Sharks versus Jets style and confront Blake M, and he skulks away. But this will be important later at the rose ceremony, so stay tuned. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention Brandon, who gets pulled into a corner by Clare after being upset that Blake M has crashed the party. And she asks Brandon why he wanted to be on the show. And he says, well, he just had to be on it because Clare is so beautiful. And that goes over well for approximately 1 second. And then she said, well, was there any other reason that you wanted to be on the show? And he has no answer for this and reveals that he did not even do so much as read a Wikipedia article about Clare Crawley. So at this point, he's escorted to some type of SUV and has to leave the show. Good work, Brandon. Finally, we have the pre-rose ceremony scene where Clare shows up to the rose ceremony cocktail party. And the highlights of this are she pulls Blake M aside prior to passing out the roses and lets him know that she really appreciates that he broke the rules of the strip dodgeball game and crashed the party, and then rewards him with a rose prior to the rose ceremony so he doesn't have to worry. So I'm sure that this move of giving Blake M a rose for not following the rules will be very popular with the other contestants. And then she pulls Dale out and starts to make out with him and curls up with him and puts her legs on his lap, and then reveals that she has a blindfold that she's saved from the puppet show date, and puts Dale up against a wall and has him put on the blindfold, and then they begin making out. An interesting metaphor for the entire Clare portion of the season is she puts the blindfold on Dale, but does not wear a blindfold herself. And that's where the episode wraps up. So we don't know what happens at the rose ceremony, but we know obviously Dale and Blake M will have roses. So that's the end of this Brutally Honest recap. I've got a longer video about Clare and her general impulsive behavior. So it's right here. Just click on it, or it'll be linked in the description. But stay tuned for more Brutally Honest Bachelor recaps. Thanks for watching. It's getting late, but I always wanted to try this. Certainly something that Chris Harrison does very well. So, gentlemen, Dale,